Good afternoon again, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for our ISAC Best Practice webinar titled Tales from the Trenches, Part 4, A Whole-of-State Approach to Cybersecurity. Before we pass it over to our presentation team, we wanted to mention a couple of quick WebEx reminders. Please utilize the chat feature for any comments or feedback that you would like to leave for our presentation team. However, if you have a question, we ask that you please utilize the Slido application for any Q&A questions you may have, as there will be time at the end of the presentation for a Q&A. If the Slido application did not populate on the right-hand side of the screen upon logging in, please click the Slido button on the bottom of the WebEx application as shown on the slide. Additionally, this presentation is TLP green. This means that this information is restricted to the community. Sources may use TLP green when information is useful for the awareness of all participating organizations, as well as within peers within the broader community or sector. Lastly, for reminders, this webinar will be recorded and made available on the Homeland Security Information Network, or HISN, after the call. And before I pass it over to our presentation team, I'd like to let you all know who is joining us on the call today. From the National Cybersecurity Center, we have our friend Jonah Wish. From the state of South Carolina, we have Chief Information Officer Jay Meyer. And from South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, we have the Chief Information Security Officer Ryan Trusky. And last but not least, from the Citadel Department of Defense Cyber Institute, we have Deputy Director of Operations and Outreach, Linda Rydell. And with that, I will pass it over to Jonah for our first presentation. Jonah?
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jonah Wish. I'm the Program Director at the National Cybersecurity Center. We're very excited to partner with MS-ISAC and CIS for this series. Obviously, it's very pertinent right now in this environment, and I will leave it at that and just get this show started. I'm going to pass it off to Jay Meyer, Chief Information Security Officer for the state of South Carolina. Jay, over to you.
Thank you, Jonah, and thank you to the host for the opportunity to speak with the MS-ISAC members about the South Carolina Whole-of-State Cybersecurity Program, and we're excited to talk with all of you today. I am Jay Meyer, the CIO for the South Carolina Department of Administration, also known as Admin. Presenting with me today is Ryan Trusky, CISO at the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division and Director of the SC Kick program, and Colonel Linda Riddle of the South Carolina National Guard, and Deputy Director of Operations and Outreach for the Citadel DoD Cyber Institute. We'll be discussing our collective efforts to protect South Carolina state agencies and South Carolina critical infrastructure from persistent and rapidly evolving cyber threats. And after introducing ourselves and our respective teams, we'll talk about each of our programs in more detail, then walk through 3 cyber threat use cases and how we protect and respond to those threats. And we'll round off the discussion with an overview of the shared responsibility model for cybersecurity in South Carolina. Each of the 3 cybersecurity teams represented here today play a different role in protecting the state. However, each of us is linked together through a partnership rooted in information sharing, communication, coordination, and collaboration. Informally, we are all linked through the South Carolina Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity Program as participating members. Representing admin is myself, Jay Meyer. I am in charge of the state's Central IT Division, providing IT, InfoSec, and privacy services for state agencies. In addition to my full-time role as CIO of admin, I'm also temporarily serving as CISO while we are searching for a replacement for James Brown, who recently resigned from admin. So if you know of any good candidates, please reach out to me after the meeting. Admin's Division of Information Security was established and founded in 2014 through the FY14 Appropriations Act and Proviso 117-125. Admin provides information security policies, cybersecurity tools, consultation, information security training, monitoring and incident response services for all South Carolina state agencies. So we are essentially an information security resource and services hub for the 75 state agencies in South Carolina, acting as an extension of each agency's information security program. And I'll let Ryan introduce himself and the SC-KIC program.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Ryan Trusky. And as Jay mentioned, I'm the CISO for South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, also known as SLED. And I'm the director of the South Carolina Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity Program, which we abbreviate out to SC-KIC, which you'll hear me say a lot today. I've been with the SC-KIC program since about 2017, where I started as a security analyst and then became the SOC manager and then director of the program. I don't want to go into too much detail about what the program is right now. We'll jump into that later. So I'll pass it off to Linda Riddle with the National Guard.
Good afternoon. I am Linda Riddle. I am the brigade commander for the 228th Signal Brigade in Spartanburg, South Carolina. When I'm not in uniform, I work full-time at the Citadel as the deputy director of our DoD Cyber Institute. I've been in the Guard for about 28 years, started off as an enlisted soldier and then worked my way on up until an 06 right now. So just a little bit about my background. I just completed in 2020 the National Defense University, the College of Information and Cyberspace. It's basically the military's war college for cyber. When I'm not in uniform, as I mentioned, I work here at the Citadel. And as many of you know on the call, the National Guard is a part of the DoD, has three primary cyber missions. First, the National Guard must defend its own networks, systems, and informations. Second, the National Guard must be prepared to defend the United States and the state of South Carolina and its interest against cyber attacks of significant consequences. And if directed by the President or Secretary of Defense, the National Guard, when mobilized in a Title X status, provides integrated cyber capabilities in support of military operations, contingency, and plans. So those are the authorities in which we work under: Title 32, Title 10, and then state active duty. And I'll talk a little bit more about those as we get further along in the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Linked through a common goal of protecting the state of South Carolina from current and future cyber threats, all three groups partner with the public and private entities we support by forming a multi-level, multi-pronged approach to cyber defense. With that brief overview, we'll go into more detail about the distinct role each of us play in providing cybersecurity, and then discuss some prevalent cyber risk and types of attacks we face on a continuous basis. So prior to the creation of the Division of Information Security, South Carolina state government had a decentralized approach to cybersecurity. Each state agency bore complete responsibility for establishing their cybersecurity policies, funding their own cybersecurity technical and human resources, and deploying and managing their own cyber defense capabilities. Given the varying size and funding of our state agencies, and the persistent and sophisticated cyber threats from across the globe that seek to exploit weak or vulnerable cyber defenses, South Carolina recognized a need to establish a baseline for cybersecurity for all state agencies. As a result, DIS was created to form a more consistent and robust cybersecurity posture for the state, pivoting the state from a decentralized cybersecurity model toward a more centralized, federated model. Through legislative provisos, DIS was given the authority and responsibility to establish information security policies, services, and oversight for all state agencies to complement and bolster agency-managed cybersecurity. DIS developed and published 13 statewide information security policies that set forth the minimum requirements agencies must implement to protect information assets from unauthorized disclosure, misuse, alteration, or destruction. Along with the establishment of statewide information security policies, DIS began offering and incrementally expanding cybersecurity services and capabilities leveraged by all state agencies. In 2019, DIS formalized its audit and assessment program providing information security resources to review each agency's information security posture, provide executive reporting on gaps in agency security controls, and guidance on improving the agency's cybersecurity posture. In 2022, DIS is expanding these efforts to increase the frequency and volume of state agency assessments and improvement efforts, as well as updating its cybersecurity policies to align with the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework and Center for Internet Security's benchmarks to safeguard system against today's evolving cyber threats. In the state's current federated shared responsibility model for cybersecurity, DIS, along with agency information security departments, form a multi-layered approach to statewide cybersecurity. State agencies are responsible for and are securing their systems and data by implementing secure system architectures, implementing controls to limit access to systems and data, securing and scanning their local networks, securing employee devices, implementing statewide and agency-specific security and compliance requirements, and updating legacy systems to eliminate security vulnerabilities. DIS bolsters state agency cybersecurity programs by providing the baseline cybersecurity policies, standards, and guidelines, cybersecurity consulting and support, information security training and professional development, and cybersecurity advisories and notifications based on threat intel collected from multiple sources such as CISA, the Federal Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and collaboration with SC-KIC and the National Guard, as well as industry-leading threat intel firms. DIS also provides oversight and response services for state agencies, including cyber incident response coordination, cybersecurity assessment and remediation support, and cybersecurity professional service and technology procurement support. Finally, DIS provides many technology services such as 24/7 statewide security information and event monitoring, and statewide endpoint malware protection and intervention, reviewing millions of security information events and blocking unauthorized access attempts. DIS performs vulnerability scanning and patch management. We provide secure remote access and multi-factor authentication, device and data protection and encryption, disaster recovery capabilities, and secure web browsing. While DIS provides a robust set of information security services, we are continuing to assess state agency needs, adopt new industry best practices, and adapt our services to address the evolving threat landscape. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Trusky, who's going to speak in more detail about SC-KIC's role in statewide cybersecurity.
Thanks, Jay. If we can go to the next slide, we're going to talk about the history of the SC-KIC program. So in 2015, former Governor Nikki Haley created the South Carolina Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity Working Group to meet, analyze, and report on the state's cybersecurity efforts. One of the gaps that the working group identified is that over 90% of the state's critical infrastructure was not receiving cybersecurity support from the state government. This image shows the breakdown of state and local government agencies, as well as private critical infrastructure in our state. The Division of Information Security was providing security services to state agencies, but the rest of the critical infrastructure community was on their own. So in 2017, Governor McMaster met with the SC-KIC working group, tasked with identifying those security gaps. Once the governor was presented with the group's findings and a plan to address them, I'm told that the governor responded with, "Why aren't we already doing this?" So with that, he signed Executive Order 2017-08, which created the SC-KIC Executive Oversight Group, which you'll see on the next slide. The EOG, or Executive Oversight Group, is currently chaired by Chief Keel and Executive Director Adams from the Department of Admin. The function of the EOG is to enact the proposals detailed in the South Carolina Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity Strategic Plan. And one of the methods used to enact those proposals was the creation of the SC-KIC Task Force. Knowing the scope of critical infrastructure is so large within our state, we felt that the solution was to provide services through a task force model. The task force model allows us to maximize efficiency and also broaden our capabilities within the state. A couple agencies I want to point out on here is the State Election Commission. They were not a original member of the task force, but in realizing the importance of the elections and how intertwined all of our agencies are with the Election Commission, we recognize their importance by adding them to the task force. And SLED has been designated as the lead of the task force because of the importance of the law enforcement component through our computer crimes, and we're also housing the state homeland security program inside SLED. And SLED, for those of you that don't know, operates the way I usually describe it, similar to like the FBI, but on a state level, where we're a assisting law enforcement agency. But through SE-KIC, we're able to do so much more than law enforcement. And looking at the services that SE-KIC is able to provide, all of the services are available at no cost to our participants. The Cyber Posture Review is the first service that an organization will receive upon joining the SE-KIC program. It's a review or assessment that shows SE-KIC the posture, the security posture of the organization, and it also identifies gaps that we feel our services should focus on. This data is leveraged by SE-KIC to continuously evaluate our services and change them to fill the most gaps at any one time. Another service that I want to highlight is our Cyber Threat Intelligence Service. We spend a significant amount of time studying the threat landscape so we can focus on providing specific intelligence and highlight the threats and exploits that we feel stand out and warrant appropriate attention from our participants. One of the newer services that I want to highlight is our adversary emulation. The way this service works is we study threat actors that have or are likely to attack South Carolina, and then we build an emulation of those attack behaviors. We then work with our participants to use the attack against their systems to test if they're able to detect it. And if they aren't able to detect it, then we'll assist them with building the proper detections so that way they can be better prepared for when the real attack happens. While most of our services are focused on prevention and mitigation, we do also support incident response, which we'll touch on later when we talk to Linda from the National Guard. The true power of SE-KIC is its team. We have developed a team of security professionals that are passionate about protecting South Carolina. We've also leveraged key strategic partners on the local and national level that want to align themselves with the SE-KIC mission, like U.S. Cyber Command. Because of our team and strategic partners, this has allowed us to become national leaders in providing cybersecurity services. One example of that is I recently had the opportunity to speak at a cybersecurity summit that was hosted by U.S. Cyber Command. It had a national audience. There was representatives from every state. And while speaking at the event, I described the work we are doing in South Carolina through the SE-KIC program. And since then, I've had multiple state leaders reach out to me for guidance and on how to kickstart a similar program in their state, which is why I was really excited to talk on this webinar today, because I think it's something that the country definitely needs. And talking with other state leaders, there's a lot of other states that are now starting the process that we've been through since 2015. And if we can take some of the lessons learned and hopefully save some resources at the other states, it'd be a great impact. On the next slide is a graph which shows the breakdown of incidents that SE-KIC is aware of or responded to last year. The top contenders are business email compromise and ransomware. This matches the national incidents as well, so this is probably not too surprising for anyone on the call. But in a business email compromise scam, criminals usually send out an email message that appears to come from a known source, making a legitimate request that typically results in some sort of financial loss. And the reason why we have insight into all of this data is because of the trust that we've built with our critical infrastructure community. Some of the states that I've talked to have had to enact laws and regulations to force organizations to report incidents. But here in South Carolina, we've been able to build a network of trust where organizations want to report incidents to us because they know that we can assist them and will handle their information professionally and with respect to privacy. And with that, I'll pass it off to Linda Riddle.
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more about the National Guard. Next slide, please. The National Guard can provide defense support to civil authorities, commonly referred to as DISCA, when a lead state entity requests assistance. Just like other types of emergency responses, cyber incident response may be provided for a cyber incident when local and state resources, capabilities are not available. Operational support can be provided in a Title 32 training status, but typically personnel are placed in a state active duty status under the command and control of the governor. The National Guard personnel may only perform actions on a network when they have permission from the network owner to do so. Based on the nature of support, the liability waivers, memorandums of understanding are created, including permission from asset owners to access appropriate information and information systems. This includes non-disclosure agreements as well. So I'll talk a little bit more about the brigade and just who we are. Shown here is the 228th Theater Tactical Signal Brigade, commanded by myself, as I mentioned before. Its major downtrace units include the 151 Signal Battalion and the 125th Cyber Battalion. The brigade is capable and has commanded and controlled signal units operations throughout the entire country of Afghanistan. This brigade has a mature relationship with Fort Gordon, and that is of extreme value to us and the state as we further plan out and strengthen our cyber capabilities within South Carolina. The 151 Signal Battalion establishes and operates military communication networks. This network knowledge and experience complements our cyber operations. The 125th Cyber Battalion is one of 5 cyber battalions in the entire Army National Guard. It is a 95-person unit composed of headquarters company, a defensive cyber company, which is also our warfare company, as you see there on the screen, and it also has an offensive cyber company, which is our defensive cyber company is our security company, and our offensive cyber company is our warfare company. The South Carolina National Guard recognize the importance of cyber operations, develop a strategy to grow the capability, and receive national recognition at cyber exercises. This national recognition is why the National Guard Bureau awarded South Carolina with this force structure allocation. The unit was activated in 2017, and then within 6 months, we deployed in 2018. The 125th Cyber Battalion, as well as the 151 Signal Battalion and the headquarters company are now preparing to deploy this year, so efforts are underway to mitigate the risk as they perform their federal mission. So I'll talk a little bit more about our defensive cyber operations element. This group is also known as our DCOE. I'm sorry, just go back one more slide. The DCOE is our state assets. They are also able to be our first responders for the governor. And then last I'll talk about is our State Guard, which you see over in the left-hand corner there. The State Guard is a volunteer group. This element has assisted the National Guard in past response activities, and efforts are underway with both our DCOE and our State Guard to vet and train and certify additional personnel to increase our response capabilities. Next slide, please. And because I work at the Citadel, as was mentioned before, I want to talk a little bit about our DoD Cyber Institute. Just a little bit of history and background. In 2017, 6 universities joined together and we formed the Power of 6, is what we call ourselves, to establish a pilot program to demonstrate their ability to develop cybersecurity talent pathways for the Department of Defense. So we've got Norwich University, the University of North Georgia, Texas A&M, Virginia Tech, BMI, Virginia Military Institute, and the Citadel. We all share a common identity as a senior military colleges that had never previously teamed together to create and fund an academic experiential learning and research opportunity for our cybersecurity students. So in 2018, the Power of 6 built bipartisan federal support of senators and congresspersons to insert language into the 2019 National Defense Authorization Act to establish the DoD Cyber Institutes. So in 2019, the Power of Six built the appropriation support to fund this pilot effort to help fill the cybersecurity workforce gap. And we're using a common framework, and that's what you see there on the slide. So we have a cyber leader development program, and that program, we're looking at our different majors for our students. We're focused on internships. So if any of you out there have internships opportunities, please contact me, because we're always looking for great internships for our students. Training and competition, that's how the students really get their hands-on experience and learning through that competitions and through projects. And then we have our leadership positions and experience. Again, being a senior military college, the students are put in different leadership positions. So again, that adds knowledge and capability to what they bring to the table once they graduate from a senior military college. Next slide. And the last thing I'll talk about just a little bit, some of our activities with our DoD Cyber Institute. One of the key things I'll mention is our Cyber Boot Camp for South Carolina National Guard. So the Citadel is in its second year of our DoD Cyber Institute, and also our second year putting on our Cyber Boot Camp for the National Guard. Last year we had 30 soldiers. We did a 2-week boot camp with Security Plus and Pentest Plus were the 2 certifications that we were really focused on. The DoD Cyber Institute, we paid for the instructional materials, vouchers for the soldiers. We were able to house them here on the campus. So it's really just a great relationship that the Guard has with the Citadel. This actually starting on Sunday will start our next second go round of the boot camp. This time we're just doing 1 week. Again, we're focusing on Security Plus, and the reason why we're doing that, because it's pretty much the foundation that's needed for a lot of the careers within the Department of Defense and also within the civilian community. So we're pretty excited to partner with DoD agencies as the school, and also, being in the Guard, it's a great opportunity for the Guard as well. Next slide. I'll turn it back over to Jay.
Thank you, Linda. So that's a brief overview of the 3 different cybersecurity programs that work together to create this whole estate approach to cybersecurity. In some ways, demonstrating how we're integrated together. Now we want to walk you through and kind of a couple of concrete examples or use cases of how we respond to different types of cyber threats. And the first one we'll walk through is ransomware. I'm sure it's not lost on anybody the prevalence of ransomware and the havoc it's wreaking globally. But I'm going to walk you through a typical ransomware attack in the context of a state agency, describing what it is, how it occurs, and how we're protecting agencies from these attacks, and how we assist in response and recovery. So ransomware, in simple terms, is a type of malicious software that infects a computer and restricts users' access to it until ransom is paid to unlock it. The ransomware may lock one, some, or all of an agency's computers, as well as block access to agency data. Some ransomware attackers also threaten to release sensitive information to the public if ransom is not paid. Now, ransomware has been prevalent for several years now. It's evolved from individual threat actors targeting specific high-value targets to a full-fledged service model with development of ransomware as a service, which targets nearly every organization globally. Ransomware as a service is a subscription-based ransom sharing model that enables threat actors to use already developed ransomware tools to execute new ransomware attacks and split the profit with other threat actors. This makes it even easier for any individual interested in perpetrating a ransomware attack to leverage advanced proven attack methods and tools. And it means that there's an elaborate business model and thriving marketplace for developing and deploying ransomware. This raises the importance not only of having layered security in place for protection, but also to be prepared to respond and recover in the event of a successful attack. So while there's many different types of ransomware attacks, all follow a similar pattern. First, the attacker attempts to infiltrate a system. This can be done in several ways, such as sending out phishing email attacks, where users are lured into downloading an infected document or clicking on a link that will download malware, or exploiting weaknesses in network configurations, such as weak administrative passwords on routers, or attacking vulnerable software, such as legacy websites that do not have up-to-date security patches. Once the attacker successfully infiltrates the system through one of these means, the malware installed will set up a communication line back to the attacker so they can gain additional information about systems and data. As they identify new attack surfaces, they can deploy additional malware in your environment. An attacker may spend hours, weeks, or even months looking for the most valuable assets and setting up additional malware to gain access to them. After the attacker has staged their attack, then they encrypt the employees' computers or agency servers or agency data that are critical for agency operations, thus rendering them inoperable and inaccessible. Now having the encrypted systems and data and significantly impacting an agency's operation, the attacker then demands that a ransom be paid in order for the encryption to be removed. At this point, the ransom must be paid or data and systems will have to be restored from secure backups if available. Additionally, all the malware deployed in the agency's environment will need to be discovered and destroyed. This process can take up to several days or weeks before systems and operations can be returned to normal. So obviously, ransomware attacks can have major impacts on an agency or an organization. For this reason, admin and the agencies we support have made significant investments in protecting the state against these attacks. First, firewalls are in place to block unauthorized traffic and traffic from specific regions of the world. Web filtering software prevents users from navigating to malicious websites that deliver malware. Email threat protection blocks malicious threats delivered through email, such as phishing emails and email attachments laced with malware. Security awareness training delivered to all state employees and contractors tells everyone how to identify suspicious emails and what to do when they're encountered. Admin also provides multi-factor authentication software for all state agencies to reduce the threat of account compromise. Advanced threat prevention is also in place to detect and prevent threats from malware that attackers attempt to deploy. Vulnerability scanning is used to detect and alert on cyber threats and malware that have infiltrated agency environments. Patch management solutions are in place to ensure the latest security updates are applied to state computers. And of course, 24/7 security monitoring. These layers of protection of security provided by admin and the agencies we partner with help protect against malware and prevent ransomware attacks. However, in the event that an attacker is able to bypass these defenses, admin also provides incident response support to help recover from a ransomware attack. We partner with private industry providers who specialize in responding to and mitigating ransomware attacks and help with ransomware attack cleanup. We partner with SC-KIC, law enforcement, and the National Guard for additional forensic and incident response support. And we provide a shared service for disaster recovery in partnership with private industry experts to help recover systems from secure backups. And while we have many mitigation measures in place for ransomware, of course, we have to remain vigilant and continue to evolve and expand our protections as threat actors continue to evolve and expand their attacks. So that's our ransomware use case, and I'm going to pass it to Ryan Trusky to walk through another use case.
Thanks, Jay. All right, Christina, try to stick with me here. We got a lot of slides to go through that are pretty quick. I'll try to help you out with saying next slide. So what we're looking at here is an overview of a real-world example incident and how it's handled with SC-KIC. It's going to highlight how we work with our partners to support an organization that's having an incident, I'll go through each step of the process while giving real-world examples and then let you see this overview at the end. The context for this incident was a nation-state actor attacking an electric utility company in South Carolina. I'm going to try to go into as much detail as I can without revealing too much information, but let's go ahead and dive into it. So in this incident, one of our federal task force partners had intelligence that an organization in South Carolina may be compromised. And typically, our federal partners directly handle the notification with the victims, but in South Carolina, because SCKIC has already established a large network of contacts through our Cyber Liaison Officer program, they go directly to us, and then we pass it on to the victim. And next slide. I also want to take a moment to explain what the Cyber Liaison Officer program is, because it's one of the most successful things that we have done on the SCKIC program. The Cyber Liaison Officers, or CILOs, are the technical points of contact at an organization. They are typically a member of the IT or cybersecurity team. They're responsible for leveraging SCKIC services and also have direct contact to the SCKIC team during a critical cyber event. So back to our incident, upon notification from our task force partner, we have a triage call with the affected organization or victim to determine the scope of the incident and assess their needs. Once that call concludes, we facilitate a call with the SCKIC task force to provide timely notification of the incident and also determine what resources are required to assist the organization from a response, recovery, and criminal investigation standpoint. One of the reasons for us having this task force call immediately after us becoming aware of the incident is the organization typically has to reach out to a lot of different federal organizations, state organizations to report that they're having an incident. And as soon as they find out about an incident, the only thing they need to be doing is responding to the incident, not going through a phone tree, trying to make phone calls. So we try to offload some of that for them. Next slide, please. Often the organization will be unable to identify the intrusion or the point of entry upon initial notification. In this use case, we knew that a device or appliance had been exploited, but there was no immediate evidence and there was no known exploits for that device at that time. This added a layer of complexity that many organizations are not prepared to handle. For example, if an organization is hit with ransomware, the incident is obvious because the computers are unavailable. On the other end of the spectrum, an organization that has just been compromised by a nation-state actor will likely have no indication that a compromise has even occurred. And next slide, please. In these scenarios, SCKIC's expertise and resources when it comes to threat hunting are an invaluable asset. Our analysts work side by side with the organization, sometimes quite literally, to sift through logs and create a timeline of events. And if our team is unable to identify the root cause, then we leverage our extended resources through the task force. And next slide, please. So one of the resources that SCKIC can leverage during an incident is the Cyber 9 line, which is a communication channel for submitting incident information and requesting assistance from U.S. Cyber Command analysts. We typically submit these requests when responding to incidents that are complex in nature or may carry a broader impact to the state or to the nation. And this is something that every state has the capability of doing, as well as critical infrastructure organizations. So if this is something that you want to do, definitely reach out to me and I can put you in touch with the correct people at Cybercom to go through this process. And I recommend doing it now before you have to do it in the middle of an incident. Next slide, please. And in our example incident, we were able to perform a live analysis with the affected organization, the SCKIC analysts, and also the Cybercom analysts. Together, through that analysis, we learned more details that enriched our investigation and assisted Cybercom in furthering their mission. The information that SCKIC provided painted a bigger picture of critical infrastructure being compromised, and through that compromise, having their network leveraged to attack other organizations while allowing the attacker to attempt to hide their identity. The intelligence that SCKIC submitted via the Cyber 9 line and through our analysis prompted an FBI intelligence bulletin that was disseminated to a national audience describing a 0-day that was found during the incident. So with that, we were able to take a incident that happened in South Carolina and share it across the nation to protect other organizations, ideally before they were compromised. And if we could look at the overall view again. So that's one of our end goals of any incident really, is to leverage a compromise and turn it around to protect other organizations from a similar attack. And if we could pass it over to Linda, please.
Thanks, Ryan. So I will talk about just how the National Guard has responded to a cyber incident within the state. Next slide, please. So as Ryan mentioned, he mentioned about the task force call and then the Cyber 9 line. So all of this works in the same way in which we would respond to a hurricane or any other emergency that's happening within the state. The TAG, so that's the Adjutant General for South Carolina, the Emergency Management Division, and the Governor's Office is notified for approval for us to respond to an incident within the state. So personnel throughout all of these entities, they've previously discussed and identified that support. So it's so important that you have your memorandums of understandings, non-disclosure agreements, and all those things into place. Those are things that you could do actually right now before an incident happens. So an example of an incident that the National Guard responded to, the 125th, the Cyber Protection Battalion, supporting a cyber incident response effort for SC-KIC, provided technical support and advisement to one of our county administrative offices in about February of 2020. Ransomware had rendered the county unable to collect taxes or provide property transactions. In addition to numerous systems across the county were being impacted. The 125th arrived on location in less than about 24 hours, immediately started to triage the ransomware infection and stop the attack from progressing. In order to recover the network, the 125th also reached out for technical support from one of our South Carolina Army National Guard, the Defensive Cyber Operations Element, that DCOE team that I mentioned earlier, and the 228 TTSB for specific experience based on soldier civilian career expertise. And that's really important because once the Guard gets involved, they not only bring their military experience, but a lot of their civilian experience they bring to the table as well. So SC-KIC and the South Carolina Army National Guard collectively restored core business services probably within about 48 hours, hardened the network over the course of the next week, and provided additional guidance to the network administrators to further harden the network. The overall expenditures for this were probably about $15,000 to the state active duty. And so again, when we're responding to an incident, it's the same way as which we would respond to a hurricane. I tell you, one key piece that's really important is that it's all about relationships, and building those relationships ahead of time is really important, so that when we're working together with the governor's office, or whether it's with SC-KIC or any other agency within the state, it's not unfamiliar territory, and we all know each other. And that's really key when you're working to respond to any type of incident. But I think definitely a cyber incident within the state, because you really want to get after it pretty quickly. That's all I have at this time. I'll turn it back over to Jay, I think, at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And in turn, I'll turn it over to Ryan to close us out.
And I'll pass it back over to Linda. No, I'm just kidding. But to close this out, I think that there's a lot of lessons learned that we have through the past few years of developing security programs in the state. And one of those, I think, that was challenging for us and sometimes still is information sharing. I think the cybersecurity community does a good job of advertising how important information sharing is, and everyone says, share, 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 but I don't think we talk enough about what it is we should be sharing. How should we be sharing it? Do we know what to do when we receive the information? Is it in a format that is easy for us to digest and act upon? And I think that's really important to do, especially when you have so many different organizations working together, is having a clear understanding of what should be shared, how is it going to be shared, and what do we do to receive it so that way we can act on it appropriately and efficiently and quickly, and the things that we need to be doing when we get this info. I think there's a lot of other lessons that we have, but I think if we open it up to questions, we'll probably be able to come across those.
Okay, thank you guys. This is Karen Cerati. I'm the VP for MS-ISAC member engagement, and I will be handling the questions and making sure that we get the questions out of the Slido app and to our presenters today. We are a little short on time, but I think we've got a few that we want to run through here. I'm going to start, Jay, with you. You were very kind to offer up yourself as a contact for getting in touch with U.S. Cyber Command for the Cyber 9 line. I just want to confirm with you, is that something you'd rather have MS-ISAC field for you? So in other words, anyone on the line that's interested can come through MS-ISAC, and then we can handle that conduit to you. I know your time is very precious and you're quite busy. So I just want to confirm that with you.
Sure, Karen, that was actually, that was Ryan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll let, it's okay. I appreciate it, but yeah, I'll let Ryan answer that.
Yeah,
to you, Ryan.
if MS-ISAC wants to field that and take that off my plate, that'd be great. Sure.
Okay, yeah. So we can put it in the chat, but it's info@cisecurity.org, and we'll field those calls or those inquiries. All right. So I just want to say you guys were 100% on point in that this is something that everybody needs, this type of coordination, consolidation, building relationships, doing it ahead of time. So there's just a few questions came in. So as you've been maturing your whole estate approach, there appears to be some overlap in your services that are being provided by admin and SE Kick. Do you have any plans to consolidate your service offerings such that, I guess, some of the things that are being offered to state agencies would be offered to local governments as well, and possibly to other CI sectors?
So that's a good question. I'll start, and Ryan, you can jump in here as well. So we do have different scope of responsibility. Admin through Provisos and Appropriations Act is really focused on the 75 state agencies. And one of those state agencies is South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. So we do work very closely with SLED, and we do have an integrated security model with SLED. And the SE Kick program is, chaired through SLED and co-chaired with Department of Admin. So we do have a close collaboration there, and we do support each other in any ways needed. So we do typically, especially in response to a cyber incident, we tend to be working very closely, especially if that affects a state agency. But yeah, it's a good question. It's something that we've talked about. And like I mentioned, we do collaborate quite a bit and support each other in many different facets. But yeah, that's a good question, something we're always looking at. Ryan, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you pretty much got it, and it is something that we're constantly looking at, and I think that with us having different approaches sometimes to how we want to address some of the risks that we're finding at organizations, and we can come together and discuss both of our approaches. Usually we can take things from each other to bring back to our programs and make an even better approach.
Awesome, that's great. Just I think a few more questions on how you guys operate. So do you cross-train or exercise together? I guess that's for incident response type stuff.
So one of the things that we have done is, because we both have security professionals at our organizations providing security services through a SOC, we've had security analysts from Department of Admin come sit with the SOC at SE Kick, and we've also had analysts from the SE Kick SOC go sit with Department of Admin and kind of do a lessons learned with each other and share processes to try to make improvements.
Awesome, that's fantastic. Another question on, again, on the different agencies. Do you have any issues with competition for resources? I think, knowing that cybersecurity resources in general are in short supply, does that become an issue?
We do kind of compete, throughout the state, not only, with the private sector. Obviously, there's a lot more jobs than there are people to fill those positions now. But as far as competition with other state agencies, no, I really don't see that. I do see people move around, quite a bit from one agency to another or into central InfoSec GIS and into other state agencies. So there is kind of movement between the different agencies, but I don't really see competition amongst the agencies as being an issue as much as just the shortage of InfoSec professionals to fill the overall state need.
Okay. Another question just came in. Can you provide some statistics, specifically how many folks are there at the Guard? How many events do you respond to in a year?
Yeah, so I'll take that. I'll quickly respond to regarding the competition real quick. With the DoD Cyber Institute, it's a great way to kind of help fill some of those gaps. Again, a lot of the students don't have the experience, but the way that you gain experience and fill some of those workforce gaps is through internships. And that's the whole reason that we started this DoD Cyber Institute amongst the senior military colleges. It's a great way, at least within South Carolina. I'm working with Ryan. Some of our students are working with him. We haven't quite started it yet, but and working with SLED and SC Kick, again, great way to kind of fill some of those gaps. Putting on my National Guard hat, so I don't have the statistics of exactly how many incidents we've responded to, and it just kind of depends. It depends on who's available. It also depends on if we're called on to actually to respond to that. So as I mentioned before, our cyber battalion, it's a 95-person group, and we're divided up into those two companies. So normally, if we're called out, it's about a team of maybe about 3-4 people. Again, it just depends on the incidents, but I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers right off the top of my head. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you. Another question is, was legislation needed to begin this partnership of state entities, or was it just an executive order to get the ball rolling? And how are you all funded? How's the task force funded, I guess?
Ryan, you want to take that one?
Sure. So from the SE Kick side, the only thing we had to get the ball rolling was the executive order. And once the executive order was passed, the funding came about a year later. And we're still not fully funded. We're doing a lot with what we have, and we're leveraging Homeland Security grants to do the majority of our services. Our funding that we have right now is probably about $1 million through the state legislator, and then about $400,000 from Homeland Security grants.
Okay, one of the other questions that's coming in, I see a lot of people are asking if this session is recorded. Yes, it will be, and it will be available to members on the HISN portal. One other question, there was a notice that the business email compromises are the #1 attack or incident that you've seen. Are you seeing a decrease with the introduction of your multi-factor authentication for email systems?
So from the SE Kick side, and I think the business email compromise question is directed towards SE Kick as far as what we're seeing for our incidents, but the multi-factor for the email systems is something that was implemented by Department of Admin for the state agencies.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we're doing through SE Kick is the phishing and security awareness training to try to mitigate some of the phishing and business email compromise, and that is helping significantly, but a lot more can be done. And really with the business email compromise, a lot of that is trying to convince the receiver of a legitimate process, usually resulting in some sort of financial loss, like a wire transfer, and usually they're impersonating a vendor. They're not compromising the account and doing some sort of like credential harvest and things like that. Usually we're seeing a financial loss from impersonating a vendor.
Awesome. Okay, it looks like we only have just a couple of minutes left. Christina, I think I will turn it back over to you for closeout.
Yes, absolutely. So if anyone didn't get or was too shy to ask a question or didn't get their question asked, answered, you can email us at info@cisecurity.org, and we'll put that in the chat again for anybody who missed it the first time. Again, this webinar is recorded and made available on the Homeland Security Information or Hidden Portal. And I think that's it. I hope everyone has a great rest of your week and a safe weekend. Thank you.